Marcy, what do you think the most dangerous phrase in finance is?
This is a holdup. I don't know.
You've got a margin call, the market's crashing. A lot of things popped into my head too. But
He broke out in a sweat.
bank robbing aside, what should set off a red flag when you express concern or you say this risk is out there, that risk is out there?
Oh.
What should set off those red flags when you've got the guy with the bias saying it to you?
Write it out. Stick it out. Stay where you are.
You know, that's one of them. It's not a loss until you sell it. It's not a profit till you sell it either. You know, it's all on a piece of paper. Unlike with the Sage method where that money is there and we lock it in. So it's different this time.
I should have known
I'm
that.
concerned about the high valuation of the P. I don't know why I made fun of my own voice in this scenario, but before we get too far down that road, I'm Mark McKay.
And I'm Marcy McKay.
And welcome to Sage Smart Solutions, where we look at new and exciting ways to protect your assets and retire tax-free. We take the time-tested strategies of infinite banking and using high cash value life insurance and safely applying leverage to it to provide excellent returns and providing you with a tax-free retirement that is not subject to the stock market risk, that you won't have to worry about when you won't have to call and say, should I sell? That's the beauty about this type of a retirement strategy.
Okay, so it's different this time.
It's different this time. You know, when I've been in this business for a long time. I don't know but where I've heard this is the most is in regards to the debt or deficit. Both, which, you know what, people don't even talk about anymore because they are so that it's rolled off that table.
Right.
I don't
in
know,
the stock market.
But the debt and the deficit, the fact that we've got $1 trillion deficit should be frightening. But you get these deficit hawks, and they'll say, well, with the international community and with emerging economies, then it's the you cannot justify, you can't talk your way out of the math that this does not work. You cannot have a $32 trillion debt and add to it $1 trillion a year or more without something bad happening.
Yeah.
So, but the other one where I hear it a lot is with when it comes to PE ratios. In particular, the Shiller PE, and I'm going to give just a real quick talk. If you're not familiar with a way to gauge how expensive stocks are, because you can say, okay, AT&T is at 150, and that's great. But if AT&T lost $3 last year, do I care that it's, So how do you know whether 150 is expensive?
Okay.
If 150, that stock made $3, that's still a 50 PE, which is high. But if that stock made $3 a share, then you understand the valuation.
So the Shiller PE analyzes and does comparisons?
Well, a basic PE is just, how much money does the company make
Okay.
and how much does its stock cost. The Shiller PE takes all the data and makes it more useful. It's called, they take cyclically adjusted. So, a lot of the peaks and valleys involved with seasonality of some of these companies, they smooth it out so that we can compare a PE from 2022. That's hard for me to say, even though we're halfway through it.
Right.
And comparing it to 1987 or 2008 or 2001 or 1929. And historically, that Shiller PE has been about 15 or 16. So that's about average. When the average valuation for the stock market is a Shiller PE of about 15. We're at 29 now. After the recent sell-offs, we're at 29. It'd been up about 31. And
lay it on me. I want to see it.
And okay, let's go take a look at it, because when you present this to people who oftentimes have a biased interest, the big brokerage houses, I saw Edward Jones out there pimping something, and I'm like, anyway.
Conflict of interest much?
Well, I mean, we know what their interest is, but I just don't tell me that the stuff you're. Anyway,
right. Don't tell me it's different this time.
Well, it's like the internet. I mean, the crypto gurus. So and so says XYZ might be worth 55 in 2025. Back it up.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go take a look at the Schiller PE because I want to show how where we are now, where we've been in the past, and some of the times that I remember people saying, "Oh, well, we're going to see higher valuations going forward because of the internet." You know what? The back of my mind, I'm thinking, are they right? Are we going to be comfortable? And this is in 1999. Think about it. Everybody's making money. Everybody's making money in the stock market. But the market, bubbles pop. It's what they do. So let's go take a look at a chart showing the Schiller PE, where we are now, why you should maybe run if you hear somebody say it's different this time.
And what are smarter options?
Absolutely. Okay, so I mentioned the Schiller PE, which is, and now he won the Nobel Prize for this, so the guy seemed pretty smart. But this is a way to look at stock prices and compare them to various points in time.
Okay.
And what makes it the Schiller PE is it's cyclically adjusted. So it takes out, if you get some industries that always do well in this type of a cycle or season, it just smooths it out. So it's more of a meaningful number. But right now that number is about, on this chart, this chart cuts off last week or a couple of weeks ago. I believe after the recent sell-offs, the Schiller S&P, the Schiller PE is still about 29.
Okay.
Now, historically, it's always been about 14, 15, 16 in that range. I had that information on one of these charts. But it's a clear indicator that the market is overbought.
Right.
And so, when that happens, you'll go out there and the bulls will come out and say, well, it's different this time. We've never dealt with cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology is going to change. So these higher valuations are justified. You know what? They said the exact same thing about these credit default swaps and the mortgage derivatives. Oh, we've got such a new, all this institutional money's coming in. They've got new financial products. That kind of innovation, like those kind of products and Bitcoin and Ethereum and the various cryptos, the introduction of those types of financial assets oftentimes happen right before a big crash or bear market.
Okay, so on the far side, is that truly 1929?
So let's look and see where, the times when the Schiller PE has been as high as it is today.
Okay.
So historically, I said it's about 15, 16 to be on average. And right now we're about, so you would think it's about twice what it should be.
Right.
Which it also was in 1929. If you'll see here, it was about 30, which is, this chart shows how much above the average it is at any given time. So it's 100% above where it typically is.
So that was the big stock market crash.
That was
and before the Great Depression.
Right. So in 1929, everybody was saying,
not encouraged,
saying you can put money into whatever and it's going to go up. FOMO is a huge psychological tool that remember when
Wall Street uses,
remember when Matt Damon said fortune favors the bold or whatever?
Yeah, the Super Bowl commercial.
72% ago he said that. If you bought the one that sponsored the commercial, it was 95% ago.
Yeah.
So, fortune just called, and it's with a margin call. It's not a congratulations.
Now, over here at the other side where it says 2000, is that where we took such a beating personally?
100%. That's exactly right. That kind of thing. And
breaking out of sweat.
There's 1987's on here somewhere also, but it's
kind of hidden in there.
Yeah, because it wasn't as over, the Schiller PE didn't get as high and it bounced back a lot sooner.
Well, but that's so interesting because that's when you had moved over to a new job. You'd taken care of all your clients, but you kept meaning to take care of our stuff, but that's when we learned never again.
But this in this chart, this is the actual the Schiller P's over this time period, you know, it also happens that that's what the stock market looked like from 2000, you know, until it bottomed.
Right. It was just like this.
But if you think about it, it's why these indicators, these ratios can be so useful as tools, because if you let's say in 2000 you got smart and said, you know what, I'm a little spooked by this.
Right.
I literally had people who had blue collar jobs that were calling and saying, you know what, I talked my mother into liquidating her pension and she wants to buy 37 shares of Qualcomm. And I just wanted to go, can you explain to me what Qualcomm does and why that's
yeah.
You know, so I mean that was the tech bubble here.
But that was also when you had people, you know, white collar, blue collar, in between, that would come with stacks of unopened statements and be like,
well, that was more over here. Yeah, so that
I can't even look at it. You know, I know I'm being ridiculous.
That was this whole
cannot
decade.
Open my statements
But,
because it's so traumatizing for me.
Yeah, but look at it. If you had, say, gone into the market in 2000, you know, you're the fear of missing out finally caught up with you and you bought at the high, and you think, okay, you know, say you did the same thing with Bitcoin a few weeks ago or a few months ago, and you're way upside down, and you think, okay, here it's pulled back 30%. This is not the stock, but this is the way you look and say, okay, it's pulled back, but the price of the portfolios is still, you know, in the 20s, which is way above of the average. So, you know, could it have bottomed there? Yes. Was there still a huge amount of risk going into?
Absolutely. So is this time it's different, just a FOMO phrase that the financial world use, fear of missing out? I
think they utilize that, and to sell it to you, I think it comes more from my gravy train is not as bulletproof as, you know, we did a piece on why Bitcoin is crashing about a month ago, and as I was doing research, Michael Saylor, who's a billionaire, who got in trouble for coming out in the late 90s, and his company was saying, this is what our earnings is going to look like, and it had no basis in reality. And, you know, he came out and said, Bitcoin is going to be at 120,000 next week. This is about 4, 5, 6 weeks ago. He is now getting on the air and pleading people to hold up these cryptocurrencies.
Oh my gosh.
Elon Musk is getting up, you know, the richest guy in the world is getting up. Anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. We'll do a piece on that. I mean, explain to me how it's not market manipulation, what these guys are doing with their live streams, you know, Discord, YouTube, and their tweets. So,
well, but this is where I start to get angry, because this is people's hard-earned money. Yeah, and it's one thing if you're a billionaire, then you can kind of play with, all these different things.
And they'll come out there and say that, I listened to Michael Saylor. He's like, listen, if you've got $100 million, it makes sense to put 1% into this and basically take a flyer. And I'm like,
yeah.
Okay, is the average guy managing a $100 billion portfolio or $100 million portfolio watching YouTube at 10:30 on a Tuesday? I don't know. He might be, because he's probably so distressed after the past week. But it's just a way to you know, you could say it's going to be different this time.
The factors might be different, but it's still that gambling with your family's financial future.
And when you look at bubbles and why they pop, it's not different time.
Right.
This time. Now, some of the factors,
the circumstances and the factors around it.
When we got the bounce off of 2008, when we had the mortgage crisis.
Right.
Well, what's different this time is that interest rates are going up. The Fed is raising rates. It's a bad setup, people.
Yeah. That you don't have to play. They make it sound like this is the only game in town, but you know, you can take your money and go home.
You can take it in a new direction, put it to work for you.
Safer, smarter options.
And you know, if you'd like to learn more about that strategy, please click below the Become Our Client so you can view our Masterclass. It's 40 minutes. It'll allow you to educate yourself on some safer, smarter ways.
Yeah, how to retire tax-free.
Without all this market volatility.
Absolutely.
And you know, and the nice thing about that is if you pay yourself first and we get that money working for you, when you get the when these Schiller P's get back to reasonable valuations, that money's been earning interest for you. And I'm not talking about the 0.5%. I'm talking about 5% or 10%, or, if we put this thing together and it's working for you, 20%. But you've got access to it, without tax ramifications, without having to worry about whether you're timing the market correctly. It makes more sense to have a solid core of tier one assets.
Well,
let's
for
go back to
to stop gambling with your family's financial.
Or if you want to gamble, that's fine. But let's let the core get to work and provide you with tax-free income in retirement, so that you can have a decent retirement and not wake up and have to check the S&P 500 futures on your phone before you roll out of bed to see what kind of day you're having.
Right. So that was interesting, and I mean that genuinely.
Yeah, there's actually, if you do find it interesting at all, there's a very interesting book, and I cannot remember what it's called, but it's different this time, Financial Folly, but it goes back 8 centuries, and it talks about, because a lot of these, in the 16th century were the economies were monarchies or governments, and so they had all this debt. You got the tulip bulb bubble, and anyway, it's just...
And they're still sort of monarchies. It's just not royalty. It's billionaires who are just playing with the world, trying to make more money and buy more airplanes or spaceships to go into outer space.
Well, and unfortunately, there's kind of a revolving door. So those same conflict, biased people are also picking your politicians and funding your politicians. And
very good point. So there are safer, smarter options. Take a look at our Masterclass. Click below how to retire tax-free and educate yourself.
But look at the Schiller P. And so if you think, okay, the market has pulled back 20%, we're in a bear market. Last time it did this, it bounced back pretty solid in 6 months. Look at where we are historically, and the problem is that both sides of that equation move. So just because the price of your stock goes down doesn't mean that the Schiller PE goes down.
Right.
Because the earnings for that company may have gone down also.
Absolutely.
And your Schiller PE can actually go up without the stock price going up, because the earnings per share are shrinking. We're going to get a contraction. We're not seeing that right now, but we are seeing gluts in inventory that could lead to stagflation down the road. So protect your assets. Set it up so that you've got guarantees in retirement, that you can take Uncle Sam out of your retirement plan.
Beautiful.
Have a great week.